And welcome back to the Thracia 776 playthrough. This is Model Omega, and this is part 2 of 3 of Chapter 1. You may have noticed there that Havan actually attacked the guy first, despite being on the other turn. That's because he has the skill Ambush, which always lets him attack first. It's a pretty useful ability. Anyway, I'm going to spend a bit of the downtime on this video talking a bit more about the different classes and units I have, and if they're basically good or not. So Leaf is the main character of this game. He's the Lord unit. He's not very good. He's on a class that can only use swords, and his stats are overall not very good. He has a couple interesting uses here and there, which I'll get into when they become relevant, but overall he's not very useful. I tend to baby him a lot with stat rings and stuff. Oh, nice job, Havan. Nice job missing the one guy. And being the Lord, if Leaf falls in battle, then I have to restart the chapter. I mean, I'd probably restart the chapter if I lost any of my good units, but him especially, there's no getting around it. If he dies, it's game over and you gotta redo it. Finn here is the first cavalry unit you get. He's a Lance Knight, which for some reason uses swords when he dismounts, but I'll talk about that later. Being locked only lance isn't that great, but he starts the game with the Brave Lance, which is one of the best weapons in the game. It allows you to attack multiple times. It's really strong, and it gives a bonus to his luck stat, which helps his prayer skill, which is basically if prayer activates, you can dodge any attack, and it runs off your luck stat times 3. Oath and Havan are pretty similar to one another. They both have the same class, which is Axe Fighter, and overall similar stats. Havan is a little stronger, but Othin is a bit faster. And Othin gets the Pooji, which is unique to him, which probably makes him better. I mentioned Havan has Ambush, but Othin has a skill too. It's called Wrath, and what it does is whenever you counterattack, the first hit, if it hits, is always a critical hit. It's really great, but it's really tempting to kind of just stick him in a big group of enemies and just let him kill them all during the enemy phase, but if you're not careful, you can end up with a dead unit on your hands if you try to abuse Wrath. By having Othin talk to his dad in this house down here, he'll get the Pooji, which I mentioned a couple times is a really great weapon. It's an axe that can attack at a range, and it has a massive bonus to critical hit. It's basically a killer axe that you can throw at people. It's really great. It's why a lot of people consider Othin to be the best axe user in the entirety of the Fire Emblem franchise. Evel seems like a good unit. She has massive stats and is really high level for being in the first chapter of the game, but her stat growth is really terrible, and when you actually get later in the game, her stats are pretty bad as well. But this early in the game, she actually is literally invincible. She's actually coded that she can't be killed by an enemy, which has story relevance, but I don't want to spoil that. You saw Havan there get a pretty bad level up with only 2 stats. Expect that a lot in this game. Stat growth is overall pretty bad in this game because every stat cap's at 20. I mean, instead of Vel's is bad, I mean, when I say hers is bad, I mean, don't expect to ever get any stats up with her whenever she levels up. But overall, the bad stat growth doesn't matter that much because promotion gains are really good, and since every enemy stats are overall not that great, and every stat cap's at 20 anyway, so it doesn't really matter. There are still a few units that you could consider to have traditionally good Fire Emblem growths. Tanya here is an archer who can only attack at a distance with bows and can't counterattack at close range. And archers are pretty bad in this game because they're completely incapable of capturing units, which is your primary way of getting weapons. Overall, she's really fast, but her strength will probably never grow on you, which means eventually she'll start doing 0 damage to enemies. You lose her for a pretty big portion of the game anyway, so it doesn't even matter. Tanya's dad, Dagda, is much better. He's a warrior, which lets him use bows and axes, and that kind of makes him a better archer than Tanya is because his strength actually matters. He's got great base stats, especially HP, which lets him be a meat shield for much of the game. He has the same problem as Evel in that his stat growth is pretty bad, but he's usable for a good chunk of the game, and he's a pretty good, reliable, even later in the game, because his base stats really are that good. And then there's Marty. Marty is terrible. You should never ever use Marty unless you are prepared to spend an obscene amount of time grinding that guy. When I said Dagda and Evel had kind of not that great stats for their level and their stat growth wasn't that great, well, Marty's even worse. He starts with 0 in skill and speed, and his growths in them, I believe, are like 10%, which means a 10% chance for it to go up every time he levels up. Literally the only thing that saves Marty is the fact that if you manage to get him to a high enough level and promote him to a warrior, the stat gains for promoting to a warrior are really high, and they'll actually pretty much put him on par or past Dagda in most cases, at a much lower level. You may notice that I'm kind of feeding a lot of kills to Leaf, and that is intentional. I told you, this guy really needs a lot of help if he's he has to survive, so I gotta give him all the attention he needs. I have Leaf switch to his Light Sword to attack this guy because his Iron Sword isn't strong enough to kill this guy. The Light Sword is Leaf's unique weapon. It has a multitude of different effects. First off, it can attack from a distance using magic, hence the name Light Sword. It gives a bonus to his luck, and it can be used as an item to instantly heal all his HP. Leaf also has the Continue skill, which lets him perform an extra attack per turn if his speed is high enough. If you notice in the first part, Leaf performed 3 attacks in a row. That was because one of the 2 attacks he did procced Continue when he made an extra attack. I am trying to capture as many enemies as I can so I can take their items and weapons. Not that I have to take this guy's bow and vulnerary, I just out of habit. You don't actually really need to like sell items to get gold and such. Shops are not that important when you can take weapons from items, although there are a few shops in the game that sell really hard to get stuff. There's one shop kind of midway through the game that's the only shop in the game that sells wind tomes, and I'm going to pick up as many of those as I can because wind is an absolutely broken as all hell magic in this game. I think now is probably a good time to mention another unique aspect about this game called the Pursuit Critical Coefficient. Basically, it's an integer from 0 to 5 that multiplies your critical hit chance by that number if you make a second attack that's not a continue attack or an extra attack from a brave or hero weapon. It's how a lot characters like Havan and Othin make so many critical hits. Havan has a PCC of 4, which basically means if he has like a 10% chance to crit a guy, his second attack has a 40% chance. Vulneraries are the standard healing item in this game. Each use of a vulnerary will restore all your health, which is quite different from other Fire Emblem games. In other Fire Emblem games, vulneraries only healed about 10 or 20 HP, while elixirs healed everything. In this game, vulneraries heal you completely up, and I would say that helps, but this game really is still that hard. Also, see Marty there take that guy's javelin to the face? Yeah, that's about all I'm probably going to use you for, Marty. You suck. Oh, and one other thing about critical hits I forgot to mention. On your first hit, before the PCC kicks in, your critical hit is actually locked at a maximum of 25, no matter how high it is. Which basically means if you have a PCC of at least 4, and you have a 25% critical hit chance, if you make any number of successful second attacks, they're all criticals. I'm about to make a bit of a kerfuffle in my unit placement here. I'm having Finn weaken this guy so I can again have Leaf kill him, but I'm scrolling through Leaf's weapons to deselect his light sword and I accidentally have him end his turn. Oh, I wish I was using save states, but oh well, you live with your mistakes and just improve from them. The music changes here from the normal chapter theme to the more heroic one. That's because I'm about to win. Basically, once you take out a certain number of enemies on the map, it changes. Or if enemies are about to overrun you and you lose a unit, it changes to a really somber one. It's a really great thing about this game. Later games would have stuff like that, but like Path of Radiance had a really great victory tune, but there's a bug in it. It only played in like 2 chapters in the whole game. It even got a track and brawl, it was that good, but yeah, just didn't play in the game. I'm trying to have Marty lure that soldier to attack him, but he thinks, I'll attack the guy that can double hit me and kill me, and attack me first instead of the one guy who will probably miss and won't kill me in 1 hit. Okay, one more thing I need to mention, and I promise this is the last one because the video is almost over, and that's about capturing. Capturing runs off another stat, build, or called Constitution in later games. Basically, you can attempt to capture only if your Constitution is higher than your opponent's. There's a couple of caveats to that, though. If you're a mounted or flying unit, you can capture any foot unit of any Constitution as long as it's not 20, and mounted or flying units cannot be captured at all unless they are put to sleep, which automatically dismounts them and treats their Constitution at its base value. Basically, mounted and flying units are treated as a Constitution of 20 when it comes to capturing. Constitution also plays an effect with attack speed. If a weapon's weight is higher than your Constitution, it gives you a penalty to your speed. It's maybe one other thing Marty's good for. He does have the highest Constitution in the game and the highest Constitution growth, but his skill is so bad that he probably will just miss every time he tries to capture someone because his stats already get lowered. Anyway, this video is coming to a close, and thanks for watching. Leave a like if you liked it, and a dislike if you didn't like it, and leave a comment. They make me happy. And if you do like this stuff and you want to see more, subscribe. That would make me super happy. Okay, that's enough shameless self-promoting. This has been Model Omega, and I'll see you guys later.